This is Mike Dilke with the Relaxback UK show on UK Health Radio, your global real feel-good radio station. On the Relaxback UK show, we explore all kinds of health topics, so keep listening and enjoy the ride. Hi, and thank you for joining me, Mike Dilke, with the Relaxback UK show. This is the first show of the new year. I want to get off to a really fantastically positive start. Anyone wondering if they should take the plunge into something new this year? Maybe starting a business, getting fit, stopping drinking, whatever it is. Do you need a bit of a kick? Well, I have just the person to give you a bit of a boot up the backside. She's got a lot of energy and has done a lot of stuff, really interesting stuff.
I don't mind being called a serial entrepreneur because my view is we are now in the era of the anti-job for life. We're in the era of a portfolio career.
Shaa Wasmund has started many successful businesses and has brought her book Stop Talking, Start Doing up to date. Then any time is a good time to tackle a drinking problem or another sort of addiction.
It's a journey. It's not a quick fix. It's not a magic wand, not a magic pill. It's someone deciding that they want a life change, and then we go on this journey with them. And at some point we leave that path and they carry on their journey of life and hopefully get the best out of what life offers.
Chris Hill of Beat My Addiction gives sensible and practical help. So please do stay tuned for a great show. Thank you.
The station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio. The station that makes you feel good.
I really enjoyed my chat with Shaa Wasmund MBE. She's done all kinds of things, including being a manager in the rather murky world of boxing. She's been awarded an MBE, so I started by asking her, actually, what does MBE stand for?
A member of the British Empire, no less. And I have to say... That's
very impressive.
Well, I have to say, I am very proud of it. I'm not particularly a royalist. I'm not anti-royalist either. I'm kind of agnostic. But for me, the reason why I'm proud of it is it was given to me for my services to business and entrepreneurship. And actually, you know, for me, coming from a single parent family, growing up on a council estate with absolutely no money, no role models around me, to be able to go from that to going to Buckingham Palace and being awarded an MBE from the Queen for my services to entrepreneurship and business in the UK, that I'm really proud of that, because I just feel like, you know, there are so many people who could do so much more if somebody just gave them a helping hand and somebody just opened a door or somebody had just switched on a light for them. And so to be recognised for doing that is, yeah, I'm really proud of it.
Brilliant. Okay, well, congratulations. Let's examine some of the things you've done. I don't think we've got time to go through them all, but the first thing that caught my eye was being a boxing manager at a very early age. So intriguing. What on earth does a boxing manager get up to? Because it strikes me as potentially rather a murky world.
Well, I will give you the short version of this. The short version is I was studying economics at the London School of Economics, and I don't share that to be a braggadocious twat. I share it for context and maybe the really bizarre world that I was living in at that time. So I'm doing economics at LSE. I win a competition to write for Cosmopolitan magazine, because even though I was at LSE, truthfully, I'm a creative at heart, and I really wanted to pursue a career being creative, not working in the city or in a bank or you know, being a broker. That didn't really light my fire.
I would argue you could be creative doing that, but that's maybe another story.
You can be, but that's not the kind of creative that I wanted to be. So I was working for Cosmopolitan magazine, and I took some letter-headed paper home, and I wrote a letter to Chris Eubank Senior. He was the super middleweight champion at the time, and he offered me a job when I interviewed him. That's the very short version of it. So I ended up doing my degree and working for Chris Eubank Senior full time. And I have to tell you, it was, one of the highlights of my whole entire life. It was batshit crazy, but it was a baptism of fire. And it was probably better than any MBA you could have received going to Harvard or any of these posh places where it would have cost you, hundreds of thousands to have got an MBA. And so whilst I was working with Chris, I really just fell in love with the world of boxing. And my granddad had been an amateur boxer. I'd always been a fan of boxing, which is why I wrote to Chris in the first place and asked to interview him. And then the more I got involved in the sport, the more I felt, well, first of all, there's no women in this industry, so I'm going to do something about that. And I felt like there's also, as you quite rightly said, it's a little bit murky. So I'm going to protect my fighters because you know what? I'm pretty street smart as well as academically smart. I know my way around a contract. I can see how they're all being screwed over, and that's not going to happen on my watch. So I actually took my exams at the British Boxing Board of Control. I got my license to become a boxing manager. I worked with Chris until he retired. I then worked with a guy called Howard Eastman, who became the British, European, Commonwealth champion. And then he had 2 world title fights in Vegas. So I worked with Don King and Barry Hearn and Frank Warren, and there was no women in the industry whatsoever. And I kid you not, half the time people thought I was a ring card girl.
I remember watching on the TV an interview with Chris Eubank, and I can't remember whose show it was. Maybe it was Graham Norton. It was something like that.
Jonathan Ross. It was Jonathan Ross.
He was wearing a riding outfit and sporting a riding crop. And at the time, I thought, what a strange man. Now, but the point is, that was like over 20 years ago, and I can remember it. So were you behind that little bit of PR?
Yes, and that all started, we worked really well together, and it's quite interesting. I was actually speaking to him yesterday, so we've stayed in touch all these years later. So how that all happened was, don't get me wrong, I can't take all the credit for it. Chris already had his own batshit crazy creative ideas, and I think I just kind of added to it.
Crazy. He came across as crazy.
Yeah, he's not actually crazy. He's just eccentric. There is a difference between being eccentric and being crazy, right? And, one of the things that I learned from him is that so many people sit on the bylines of life talking about all the things that they want to do, and they never actually get in the ring. They never get in the ring and do it. They just talk about it all the time. And he was such a doer. And so we constructed all kinds of strategies to make sure that no matter who he was fighting, the press only talked about him. And turning up at a press conference with Nigel Benn on a white stallion in his joppers and his monocle and his boot. I mean, Ben was overshadowed. Like, if you look at the press coverage, 95% of the press coverage was all about Chris, and it was all photos of Chris. And so every time there was a big fight and every time there was a big press conference, we just had to come up with some new elaborate plan, right? But it worked every time.
Well, certainly I remember it. And you know what? I'm not really into boxing. So, yeah, it definitely worked.
It worked.
Yeah. So, all right. So you had this time in this kind of bizarre world of boxing, and then something kind of a little more dull, vacuum cleaners.
I can't. You cannot call Dyson dull. So basically, after Chris retired, I had another strange encounter, one of those just fortuitous moments in your life. I met Sir James Dyson before anybody knew who he was, and I started working with him from around a kitchen table, and I spent 5 years helping him build up the Dyson brand. And again, it was a phenomenal experience. Again, just like doing another MBA, just in a different sector. I feel like, I've had some really great opportunities in my life, and I am incredibly grateful. And it was a similar challenge, because back then, nobody was really interested in talking about a vacuum cleaner. Why would you be? It's not really that sexy or exciting. However, his story is. And so what happened was, he had all these PR companies pitching him to take on the Dyson account. And we had a mutual friend in common, and they suggested that he met me. And so through my naivety, genuinely, because, you know, one of the things about, you know, the naivety of youth is you don't have the same kind of filters or barriers as you go, oh, I can't say that, or I shouldn't do that, or oh, that might be a bit too risky, or you just don't have those things. So what happened was I just said, I think all these agencies are wrong, James. I don't think this is about the vacuum cleaner at all, because if we make it about a product right now, you're just one product against all these other products that everybody knows, and Hoover is a verb in the dictionary.
Yeah.
This is about you. You see, when you compare product versus product, it's just a product. But when we compare an entrepreneur and an engineer against, to be quite honest, a grey man in a grey suit with a grey washed out shirt, you shine. And so that's how that's the stand we took. We really focus on James as a personal brand, as an individual, as opposed to just focusing on, I wasn't interested in trying to get PR for a vacuum cleaner. I wanted to help create a brand. And off the back of that, we sold a shit ton of vacuum cleaners.
So was he happy kind of for that to happen? Did he kind of let you get on with the PR, or was he like involved?
He was amazing. I mean, honestly, he trusted me so much, and he was incredible, absolutely incredible person to work with, and absolute out and out 100% genius.
So this all happened like before you were 30. This was you were young.
Yep, I was in my mid-20s at that point.
Fantastic. And then you started setting up businesses. So you've been sort of described as a serial entrepreneur, I think, setting up loads of businesses. Have you got a favourite?
The one that I'm working on right now that nobody knows about, probably. Yeah, I'm building a software company right now that will launch next year in the coaching space, because I'm a really big fan of personal development and coaching. I think it has the ability to change people's lives. And I think that when we're in a world where we've become so much more aware of the importance of good mental health and supporting people, to me, therapy is typically about cure. So we go to therapy when our problems have got to a stage where they're too big for us to be able to solve ourselves. And coaching, for me, in the main part, not completely, but it's actually prevention. So if we can actually encourage people to seek out coaching in the same way you'd seek out a personal trainer, you right. Wouldn't think twice about having a personal trainer. You would be like, well, of course I have a personal trainer, because they will be able to create a plan for me to be able to improve my strength, my physical ability, my weight loss, or whatever your goals are. And I want people to think like that about having a coach, because actually a coach, whether it's a life coach to help you navigate certain challenging periods of time, or it's a career coach helping you figure out what your next career move is, or it's a business coach helping you grow your business, there is no successful team in the world that doesn't have a coach, period. There's no football team, no cricket team, there's no boxer, there's no athlete. No one in the sporting world has success of an Olympic level or a world-class level without the support of a coach. That's a fact. Yeah. So okay. Why would we not do that?
So is this coach a robot or a person?
No, it's a platform, and it connects coaches with people who want to be coached.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't mind being called a serial entrepreneur, because my view is we are now in the era of the anti-job for life. We're in the era of a portfolio career. We're in the era of, actually, if I take my book, it's like this. We have different chapters in our books, right? And that's what our careers are like, and that's what businesses are like. But also, if you think about it, the way technology has changed so dramatically over the last 20 years, opportunities change so quickly, because if you think the opportunities that social media has created, I mean, social media has created social media has created billionaires out of some influencers who do nothing, like Kylie Jenner, for example. She has created a billionaire.
I don't know who that is. I don't move in this world.
All right. No, but it's really interesting, because it's not about an age demographic. There's plenty of people across social media of all different ages who are building businesses on social media. And the only reason I use that as an example is to say that previously, one decade was quite similar to the next decade, with incremental shifts and changes in technology. But the last 20 years have seen such a plethora of change across how we communicate that is also, I think, certainly from my experience, created so many more business opportunities.
You might have sort of answered my next question in some ways, because I have to admit sometimes, so I'm 56, all right. So I do get all this modern things change quickly, but I've also got a foot in the other camp, and to some extent, get a bit what's the right word? Dubious of people that set up lots of businesses, sell them, and move on. I think, what was wrong with that business? Why did you have to get rid of it so quickly? And just feel a little bit suspicious. Should I be suspicious of you, Shaa?
It depends on what you mean by quickly, right? I don't believe running a business for 5 years and exiting is quick. 5 years is a long time. Yeah, 5 years is 60 months. We can keep going. How many hours and minutes is 5 years? It's a long time. Now, if somebody sets up a business and is able to exit within 12 months, I wouldn't be suspicious of them. I would think they were either lucky or a genius or potentially both. Because what will happen is if you set up a business and you're able to sell it within a year, you've obviously set up something at exactly the right time and you got in early, and some bigger companies looking at you thinking, you've already got a market share, but if we had our audience, we can make more money. So they want to come in and buy that to save themselves time. It's just economics. It's not, it's not any different.
And I suppose because things change so fast now, that things do move just a lot more quickly than they did 30, 40 years ago. And that's just a fact of life now.
However, Mike, there is something quite interesting that I think is happening right now. So whilst I've just said everything I've just said about the fast pace and the movement and the technology and all the opportunities it brings, I actually think we are now going into a period of time where we're craving nostalgia, where actually what we're craving is more simplicity. We're craving time off of social media. We're craving time off of our phone. We're craving time off of our Zoom calls. So I think that, we'll see if I'm right in 2 years' time, I think that what we're going to find is over the next 5 years, you're going to see things like an increase. Well, I wrote about this in my book, that there is actually a waiting list for allotments. And that waiting list is increasing every single year. And that is about as basic as it gets, right? Because there's no technology in an allotment. But the waiting list every year, there are more and more people who the demand for allotments grows every single year. So why
I'm one of those people on that list.
I did not know that, did I, Mike?
No.
Right? And one of the things you'd be surprised about is the age demographics of people who are on that list. It is not all over 50 or 60. It is people in their 20s and their 30s who are craving downtime and peaceful time and simple time where they're not constantly bombarded by more and more messaging. They just want to sit there with their tomatoes.
And what a nice thing. And you can even eat the tomatoes occasionally as well.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
So, yeah, I agree. I wonder what businesses will, they're probably already being created with that sort of shift in mind. I'm not about to launch another business. I do run my own business. And the thing that I found, and this is kind of, I should have read your book a few years ago, is that always, every single day, certainly at the start of running a business, is like you're doing something you haven't done before, and it's all a bit scary. So this title, Stop Talking and Start Doing, because that really chimes with me. What the analogy I use, in the film Braveheart, when the Scottish have just made those long spears, right? And the English are charging at them on horses, right? I feel like that all the time. I feel like I've been charged at. What the hell's going to happen next? I think I could have read your book a while ago and it would have been probably quite useful to me. But who was it aimed at when you first wrote it?
Well, it's definitely not aimed at business people per se. It's aimed at anyone who has got what I call an itch to do something. Whether you feel like you're stagnated in your career or you feel like you're stuck in a relationship or you're just frustrated with yourself because you've got hopes and dreams. You know, it's like we've all got these friends who talk to us about how they want to run a marathon, or they want to give up smoking, or they want to get married, or they want to move to the south of France, or they want to start up their own business. And then a year later, they're talking about exactly the same thing. And they haven't made any progress towards that. Now, I'm that annoying friend that gets really frustrated because it's not that everything I do works. I want to be really clear about that. I'm not that arrogant and I'm not that good, right? The truth is a lot of stuff that I try doesn't work. But what I don't do is not try. So I get really frustrated with my friends. So I'm like, well, why are you still talking? Why haven't you, like, do you even know how much the house in the south of France that you want costs? No. Well, how are you going to buy it then if you don't even know how much it costs? And so my whole thing is, we're a long time dead, right? And you know, I'm sure you've heard of the 5 regrets of the dying and all of the studies around how people feel when they're in their final moment or their final day, when they look back on their life. What did they regret? What do they wish they'd done more of or less of? And it's always the same thing. It doesn't matter what culture you're in. It's always their regret is not being more true to themselves and pursuing their dreams. It's not trying to do the things that they wanted to do. Whether it was, I just wish I'd ran a marathon once. I just wish I hadn't stayed in an unhappy marriage for 20 years and I had just got out and I had the opportunity to meet somebody that could have actually made me happy, or we could have made each other happy. Or I wish I hadn't just stayed in that career because it felt safe, even though I hated it. I wish I'd given myself a chance to go and set up my own business. I wish I'd written a book. I wish I'd started a podcast. I wish I'd got really fit. Because actually now when I hit 60 and I'm carrying an extra 30 pounds, if I'd handled that when I was 40, I wouldn't be in this situation today. All of those things, it's not about, you know, it's not a business book. It's what actually Waterstones call smart thinking. It's a cross between business development and personal development. Sure. Because it's very much about, you know, when you look at it, it's a super easy read, right? It's got a ton of pictures and graphs in it. And the reason that it's very visual is because there's a huge amount of research that shows that we remember things far better when there's a visual element. Exactly why you remember Chris Eubank, because there was a visual element attached to the story or the learning, right? So I have a kind of a style of writing that is always very visual with the written word, because I want people to remember things. It's what I call inhalable content. You could pick this book up. And by the way, can I just share with you, it's currently #1 in the non-fiction charts at WH Smith's, #1. So I'm very proud of that.
Was that #1 you said, Shaa?
Yes, it was #1 in the non-fiction.
All right, all right. Just for anyone I didn't hear. So this. Okay, I said I should have read this book a while ago. First of all, to give me the kick to start my business. I did start the business anyway, but it sounds very useful. In its first form, why did it need updating? Surely was kind of the same. We still need a bit of a push. So why update it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the first time around, it was WH Smith's best-selling non-fiction book for 14 months in a row. So that's over a year, right? So it broke all of their records, and to this day, no book has broken that record. So I think that this topic of procrastination is a perennial favorite, because we are all plagued with procrastination. However, the things that suck our time today are very different to what they were 10 years ago. So actually, all the things we're talking about, 10 minutes ago, technology today is different than it was 10 years ago. Social media is different today. The amount we are bombarded, it's so easy to waste hours and hours of Netflix, Apple TV, Prime Video. How many times have you wasted hours on end without even realizing it? You might not do that, but I guarantee you some of your listeners do.
No, I am pretty bad. In spite of running my own business and doing things, I can go down the sort of time-wasting rabbit holes. Yeah,
but we all can, and so it's about 60% of the content is fully updated to take into consideration all the ways in which we currently procrastinate, all the things that steal our time. I created a cool little quiz for people as well, so they can do this quiz and it will tell you exactly where your time is being stolen, who's stealing your time, right? Is it social media? Is it just absolute procrastination? Is it the TV? Is it this? There's a variety of things that most of us are guilty of, and it's usually one thing that's a bigger pull for you than it is for other people. But obviously, you know, we're all a little bit different. But the reason to update it was because technology's changed, and so the things that suck our time have changed. It was also to take into consideration the impact of the pandemic, spending 2 years essentially at home and not having to, you know, commute to work. What impact did that have on us? Did that mean that these extra 2 hours we had every day, we suddenly started using them more efficiently? Or is the reverse true? Did we actually start to procrastinate more? Because I think during the pandemic, for a lot of us, time seemed to stand still. Like, there were some moments where I was like, I don't even know, is it Tuesday or Thursday? Like, is it May or June? Like, and all of that has an impact on our propensity for taking action. And so I updated the book to take all of that into consideration and to say, right, what do you do in 2022, 2023, 2024 to help yourself stop talking and start doing? And why do I want people to do that? It's really simple. Because if you are to fulfill your greatest human potential, you're not going to do it by talking or thinking about the things that you want to do. You're going to do it by doing the things that you want to do.
You're right. Earlier on, you said that you're one of those annoying friends that if your friend's saying, oh, I wish I could start a new life in the south of France, or a few months on, you say, all right, well, look, what have you done towards it? Let's just turn it around. Do any of your friends say to you, come on, you haven't done this yet? And what is it you haven't yet done? Because I find it hard to imagine there's that many things you haven't done yet. But is there anything that you haven't quite got round to yet?
You would be amazed. Do you know why I wrote the book? Because my number one way to self-sabotage, by the way, we all self-sabotage. There isn't a person on this planet who doesn't self-sabotage to one degree or another.
Well, you've got to have an excuse in case something doesn't work, haven't you? Isn't that the point?
Of course. Yeah, we're all human, right? So ironically, my number one way to self-sabotage is to procrastinate. Because I'm not lazy, I've got a really great work ethic. So what I know is when I start to procrastinate, I know that's me getting in my own way. So now I'm self-aware enough to go, okay, Shaa, you're doing that shit again. You're procrastinating. Why are you procrastinating? Because actually, typically we procrastinate on the things that we really want to do. We procrastinate on the things that actually really mean something to us, whether that's out of fear of failure or fear of success. There's all kinds of psychology behind it. But we typically don't procrastinate on the stuff that doesn't mean very much, right? We just get it done. But the stuff that's actually potentially life-changing, we keep pushing off and pushing back. And so even writing a book, I pushed that off for ages and ages and ages. I took 3 years to write my first book. So I almost wrote the book for myself. So yes, my friends do one of two things. They either say to me, oh my God, Shaa, calm down. Can't you just be happy with where you're at? And I'm like, I am happy with where I'm at, but that doesn't mean I won't be happy. I just keep moving forwards, right? Like, we're a long time dead. I've got no guarantee that there's another life. I've got no guarantee I'm coming back. So genuinely, I want to create as many experiences and memories as possible whilst I'm here. And not everything I do is going to work. And I'm genuinely all right with that. And the other side is that I hold myself publicly accountable. So right now, I am starting a big fitness campaign, and I want to get into the best shape of my life. And that isn't about weight, it's more about absolute fitness levels. And so I tell everyone, and then everybody holds me accountable. I post how many miles I'm going to run. I post when I'm going to the gym. I post how much I'm going to lift in terms of my weights. And I genuinely believe that, but the same could be true if I said I was going to write a book. Then I have to do it because otherwise I'm going to look a bit stupid, right? And I hate it.
Okay, so you're saying you'll come on in 2 or 3 months' time and I won't recognise you because you're going to be just muscly.
Yeah, I'll come on and I'll look like I'm entering one of those bronze bikini competitions.
Okay, right. Well, I won't. If we're talking via Zoom again, I won't say you got to wear a bikini, obviously. But look, absolutely fascinating chat. Finally, your book in its new form. You got to tell us all where we can get it.
All right. Well, it's called Stop Talking, Start Doing. It is available at all big WH Smith stores. So if you are going to the airport or a train station, I guarantee you'll be in there. And if you go quickly, it will be #1 in the non-fiction charts. And you can help keep it at #1 in the non-fiction charts. But if you're not near a WH Smith, just pop online, go to Amazon. And of course, it is available on Amazon, as all good books are.
All right, Shaa, look, thank you very much indeed for chatting. Absolutely fascinating.
Loved it. Thank you, darling.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Addictions of all sorts and alcoholism is a big problem in the UK. Chris Hill from Beat My Addiction helps those wanting to break any addiction. And I started off by asking him how many hospital admissions in the UK are due to alcohol addiction.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking hospital admissions, you're talking tens of thousands. I mean, if you look at the bigger scale, we're looking at, I don't know, maybe 40 million adults in this country might be drinking alcohol, once a week. I mean, it's I think it's like one in 5 of us don't drink alcohol, and if you actually look at the younger generation are not drinking alcohol. They've sort of rejected alcohol because of the behavior of their parents over the last 30 plus years, if that makes sense. So in general, it's an older generation issue, but society has taught us, our generation, that we should be drinking alcohol. Alcohol is our pleasure, our crutch, our route into adulthood. We've all drunk alcohol and got a good feeling from it, but we're never actually talking about the consequences of alcohol, the losing of our inhibitions, our behavioural switches, our, the people that have gone on and drunk drive and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of it is less now because, our views about stuff is changing, but we've got decades and decades of problems and illnesses and cirrhosis of the liver and stuff like that. But that tends to happen a long time after drinking. Sure. It's more about the psychological issues that are going on with people. And, if we think about how many, people are drinking alcohol, then think about how many people are taking antidepressants. Alcohol, and no one ever talks about this, alcohol, one, is an addictive substance, but two, it's a depressant. So when you're drinking it, you get the effect of it, but when you're not drinking it, we feel depressed about the world. But
I was going to say, certainly drinking alcohol is just woven into the fabric of society, like you mentioned, so that there's lots of people drink and it's pretty normal. But you said something that I'd like to pick up on, which I thought was quite interesting. Young adults are drinking less because they're so horrified at the behavior of their parents. So are they just choosing other drugs? What are they doing instead? Or are they just cleaner living and more healthy and all the better for it?
Yeah, I mean, if you just go back, I don't know, 40, 50 years, our parents were, working class, they used to go to a social club. I don't think, drink wasn't abused the way it has been in the last 30 years. The problem that we've got is mid-late 80s, the recreational house music, drugs came onto the scene, the cannabis, the LSD, the ecstasy, the cocaine, so we've grown up the last 30 years. If you looked at the last generation of the last 30 years, we're a generation that have abused stuff. We really have. I mean, it's very clear to see, and the evidence that you can see by that is that, we have more people dying now at the age of 50 plus than ever before recorded in history. And, scientists are baffled, going, we don't understand it, but we understand it that, if you abuse your body for so long, then eventually, it's going to start to go wrong. So if you look to us as youngsters, looking at our parents, they weren't abusing alcohol. So what tends to happen is the younger generation end up doing the opposite of what their older peers are doing. So our parents didn't abuse it, our generation did, but now our kids are looking at us over the last 30 years and thinking, I don't want to be that way. And that's why, evident to that is why the drinks industry have brought out all these non-alcoholic drinks now, which are awash, because they're trying to serve the younger generation. They know that they're not going to take the drug, and to try and answer your other question, unfortunately, yes, the younger generation are now looking for different fixes, and that's coming in the way of, the laughing gas, the balloons, these little canisters that they're taking.
Those, yeah.
They're taking cannabis, which is on a massive increase. Unfortunately, with cannabis, it causes psychosis. They're going for a cheaper drug called ketamine. So ketamine is a horse tranquilizer, but it causes like a numbing feeling. It spaces people out, they become completely calm, but it's highly addictive. And unfortunately, the effects of the drug on the body is that the drug crystallizes in the bowels. And so we've got like young teenagers now that because it shrinks the bowel, it affects the bladder. We've got, teenagers now with the bowel size of like an 8-year-old. And, unfortunately, some are needing colostomy bags, some need bowel transplants, and the timeline to that is, between 3 and 7 years. So if, a young person's been using for that long, I mean, look, I took recreational drugs for 20 years. If I was taking ketamine back when I started, I mean, I probably wouldn't be here, or I would have had bowel transplants or, major bodily issues, if that makes sense.
So there's potentially a massive problem being stored up for not that many years down the line with young users of ketamine, by the sounds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we are an epidemic already. It's just hidden. The same as my lifestyle growing up. People think drug addicts or alcoholics and that. People think it's down and outs and you're dependent and you're using every day. It's not that. It's all of these drugs are being used recreationally. So it's hidden. It's not filling out into the open. These kids, these adults, people are working. These are functioning people. But in the background, they're suffering with the mental health, the physical health, the monetary, the debt, the whole list of the consequences are going on in the background, but anyone looking outwardly in it is not seeing it. It's not the drunk with a bottle and a brown bag sitting on a pavement. The society is using, but it's being done recreationally, so it's being hidden. And the problems are not coming out. Like I said to you, we're seeing the consequences of 30 years of usage with lots of 50-year-olds dying now, but with the young.
Let me just interrupt you there. So I'm a pretty boringly normal average bloke, right? So I'm 56.
Yeah.
I for probably the last 10 or 15 years, I might have had a glass or two of wine 5 nights a week. Absolutely. Now, I bet there are a lot of people out there just like me. Now, I wouldn't call myself an addict at all, because I do go for periods, quite long periods, when I don't have anything to drink at all. But you start adding that lot up, that's quite a lot. And the fact is, if you drink a glass or two of wine most days for 10 years, you start to get fat. Now, I've just suddenly thought, hang on a moment, you're now fat. You got to do something about that. But do you think I'm potentially facing more of a problem than just being a bit fat?
So, look, there's lots of things going on. If we're just talking about health, okay, when I don't want to frighten viewers, listeners, off drinking alcohol. Look, drinking alcohol, let's not see it as a problem. But look, every time you put alcohol into your system, alcohol is a poison to the body. All right, it's not a natural source of nutrition or anything else. So when you put it in, it goes in as a poison. Your immune system then has to fight the poison. So if you're putting it in 5 days a week, your immune system is constantly trying to get rid of alcohol, get rid of alcohol. If you wasn't putting alcohol into your body, then your immune system would repair your body. So if it's fighting alcohol all the time, it's not repairing your body. So your body needs regeneration. It needs to heal itself. When you sleep, your body's healing itself. But if you're drinking alcohol throughout that night, it's not healing the body. It's just trying to get rid of the alcohol. So Stop October and things like this are good things for the body to start healing itself. But also it's a good time for people to start thinking about their habits, their behavior. What about getting back to our natural state of being? I mean, we were born with 27 different emotions to experience life. All we're doing with alcohol is suppressing them. So we suppress our human nature, our being, just to get a fix of the high of alcohol. But the high is a perceived high because it's only taking you back to where you were. And then when you're not drinking it, we go back to a lower emotional state, waiting for our next drink. So it's natural for people to drink every night because it makes us feel good. But the feeling good is coming from a state of lower emotions, which is the side effects of the alcohol. If you remove the alcohol, you go back to your natural state of being, which is a high, and then you don't need it. And then your body can do what it's meant to do, and you can live a much healthier lifestyle.
Right, okay. I think you might have just answered it in what you just said, but I wanted to ask you what kind of happens in addiction. So, if I'm having 2 glasses of wine every night, or maybe more, perhaps, I really have become dependent on alcohol. What is this, like a physical dependency or a mental dependency or a mixture of the two? And the reason I kind of ask that is because sometimes you get that feeling when you've had a really busy day and you think, oh God, I just fancy a beer, and you open a beer and you have a first glug of beer and you're, that's better. That's got to be mental because there's not enough time for any alcohol to get into your blood then. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, so 95% of addiction is psychological. Yeah. And I know a lot of people will question that and say, no, but there's a physical dependency. And if you look at an alcoholic, they're physically shaking and that. So there's, I understand all of that, but 95% is psychological. It's a psychological problem. We have wired our minds, our neuro pathways, and associated alcohol with good times, bad times, celebrations, commiserations, when you're stressed, when you need to, we've associated alcohol with so many things. So your brain is hardwired now to drinking. So if you just said, right, I'm just going to stop drinking, you can make that conscious choice. But the system, the brain, it doesn't understand. It can't just switch off. We have to break down these neuro pathways. We have to start creating new experiences, new memories and stuff like that. But before you can break down the psychological part, you've got a subconscious mind, which is like your survival mechanism, which feels the dependency of the body like hunger or thirst, the survival, but it sees alcohol as the same. So you have a very powerful force inside of you that says that you have to drink. And if you try to stop eating or drinking for 24 hours, you would find it very, very difficult. And it's the same for alcohol, and when people do Stop October, I think for a lot of people, there is a realization of dependency. And even though they're recreational, there is a want and need. They're thinking about alcohol every single day for those 30 days. And the relief they get when they actually drink at the end of the month is so amazing that they think, I'm never going to stop drinking. But the bit that they're missing is that there's an addiction there. There's a dependency. And unfortunately, the longer you drink, the more you're going to feel bad or depressed about the world. And hence, that's why we either look for other recreational drugs or antidepressants or sugar or caffeine or food. I mean, there's so many addictions. I mean, we could talk all day about addictions, but.
All right, well, let's try and keep it simple, as simple as we can, sort of addictions in general, but kind of majoring on alcohol, I guess. Now, you all my guests know what they're talking about. You know what you're talking about. You have overcome addiction. So, and now you help others to do so. So, if you were talking to someone like me who, said, right, they don't want to drink, forget these 2 glasses of wine a day, or it might be more, it might be, might be drinking a lot more.
Yeah.
How do you help others kind of get over this? Because you mentioned that if people stop drinking for 30 days, October, some of them, that's not enough. They're desperate to have a glass of wine at the end of that. So, this is not easy to overcome. So, Chris, how do you help people?
Yeah, so the way that we help people, and it's something I discovered, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, was the separation model. So the separation model is who we are consciously and how your mind and body work. I thought that my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions were me. And so when I got an urge, I would act on that urge. But through, study and therapy and everything else, I now realize that consciously I'm independent of mind and body. So what I mean by that is my thoughts, my wants and needs are actually coming from a system that's not me. And once you recognize the separation model, we teach people a self-talk technique, which forms a reprogramming of the mind, which switches off the trauma. And what I mean by that is switches off the physical want and need to act. So at the end of that month, they do stop October. Everybody's using willpower. So willpower will not get rid of an addiction. At the end of the month, they either use or they carry on their trauma of wanting something but not actually having it. So what we do is we teach through education the way to switch off the want and need, and then we start to work on the neuro pathways, memories and experiences. And I suppose after 6 to 12 months, they built up a new set of neuro pathways, and now the brain operates on a free level instead of a dependency to alcohol. So that's the basic, way that we teach people. Yeah.
That sounds like a very simple explanation of something that might be quite complicated and difficult.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a simple model, but what we're dealing with is your mind, which is very complex. So just making a decision to stop is not enough. We call it the willpower method. What we need is a reprogramming of the mind. We have to switch off the trauma. People are fighting against the system. They're fighting against, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat. It's like a diet. How long can you go for a diet? A week, a month, 3 months, you lose the weight, but then you eat, and you put it all back on again. We got to stop dieting. What we need is education and a map to show people the way out of this. But just know that there's no real in between. You either drink or you don't. There's no such thing as social drinking. Even at social drinking, there's still a dependency. But look, I'm not trying to get everyone to stop drinking. But what I would be saying is if you perceive there to be a problem, then reach out, because we can help. But for everyone else, you can live and die drinking alcohol and it never really become a problem, like yourself. Okay, I'll put a bit of weight on, but, you can do a diet and lose some of the weight. If you're happy with your drinking, then just carry on. But the people that come to us, we release them from the burden of alcoholism and return them to their natural state of being, which is a high, which is calm, and they live the rest of their life in a higher emotional state. I mean, that's basically what it is. So people have a choice, but if people don't know they've got a choice, they carry on drinking.
Yeah, no, I mean it does sound very appealing. Do you keep in touch with your do you call them customers or clients or patients?
So yes, we stay in touch with clients. Like I said, we put people on a journey. It's a journey. It's not a quick fix. It's not a magic wand, not a magic pill. It's someone deciding that they want a life change. And then we go on this journey with them. And at some point we leave that path and they carry on their journey of life and hopefully get the best out of what life offers. We've got this beautiful world out here, but our world becomes very small when it's just opening a bottle every night and we lose our sense of being in the world and stuff. So it's good to be sober.
That sounds like a very good phrase to finish on. But if people are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to explore this a little bit more, and they are concerned that some of their habits, have become addictions, how can they get hold of you or find out a bit more about addiction in general, about Beat My Addictions, which is your company? What is a good sources of information, Chris?
I mean, there's three ways that you can find me on Amazon. I authored a book. It's called Get Your Life Back, The Road to Freedom from Addiction. So that's on Amazon. Our company is beatmyaddictions.com. So if you just come to our website, you can fill out a form and we can see how we can help there. Or we have a charity set up in the name of my brother, Rob Hill. So it's robhillfoundation.org. And there you'll see our charity services and free services and stuff like that. But whatever situation or place that you might be in, there is a way that we can help. And yeah, just come and find us at beatmyaddictions.com.
Perfect. Chris, thank you very much indeed for chatting. It's an important subject.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, been lovely speaking to you, Mike. Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you very much indeed to my guests on this week's show, and they were Shaa Wasmund, talking about lots of things, but specifically about her rewrite of her book, Stop Talking and Start Doing, and Chris Hill from Beat My Addiction, and of course a big thank you to you for listening. That was the Relaxback UK show with me, Mike Dill. Thank you for listening, and please do join us again next time.